Hello and welcome to the Blood Reds morning stream. I'm joined by my Liverpool.com writer David Lynch to discuss last night's event. So it was a much needed 3 points, wasn't it, David, for Liverpool last night?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, the way the season started been so patchy, Liverpool, haven't they? And then to, begin the Champions League campaign in the way they did by getting thrashed by Napoli, it's, not a great start. And I think, you look at the complexion of Group A and you think that Napoli, Ajax and Liverpool are three teams who are really going to be challenging for those two spots. I think Rangers is a big step up for them. Vitally important for Liverpool to not just build on the fact or get over the fact that they were beaten so heavily in that first game, but to come up against a team who are likely to rival them for them spots coming through. Dropping points at home would be a really, really bad idea because those away games we've already found are going to be difficult enough as it is. So, yeah, it was absolutely vitally important that they got the win and also the nature of it as well. Not just, winning late on is helpful for confidence. I think sometimes it just gives the team a nice little boost, but I think Liverpool deserved it. I think the performance was very good overall. They dominated Ajax. I think Ajax really scored from their one real opportunity. So, to put together a really good performance and then get your rewards for it in such a dramatic fashion late on, I think, bodes well for Liverpool. I think it'll be good for confidence moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's not Liverpool's first last-minute goal this season already. We've seen against Newcastle, but I feel like in comparison to that Newcastle game, this game was much better in the overall performance. I think this was the most shots on target Liverpool have had, apart from that Bournemouth game. I feel like nowadays, this season, when we are discussing Liverpool, that Bournemouth game is a bit of a caveat. But in terms of just the whole overall structure of Liverpool's midfield, it was much improved.
Yeah, I think there was a feeling after the Newcastle game that was one that Liverpool had sort of slightly got away with, just in the sense that, they weren't the dominant force in that game. I think it was a very even game. Newcastle could really feel aggrieved that they'd conceded that injury time goal, and I know they were playing the game a little bit, weren't they, in terms of going down with injuries and things like that. But Newcastle had, they played their part in that game fully. They'd had a lot of chances as well as the goal that they scored. So yeah, the hope then was that scoring late would sort of propel Liverpool to start performing better to get wins, but this time around totally different, as you say. I think Liverpool would have been a little bit aggrieved if they'd have ended up with just a point from the Ajax game, and there's real building blocks there that they can take forward, and I think there's a few elements to that of why they look better, but generally the performance was just a whole lot better, and I think that's what you want. As much as the 3 points are a real boost, you also want to take forward the fact that they were much better in overall performance, and that'll be the most pleasing thing, I think, for Jurgen Klopp.
Exactly. And we've got a few comments. If you do want to have your say, make sure you leave your comments in the comment section. Bruce Moyo mentioned Thiago's significance to our playing style, highlights how quickly we have to get Arthur up to speed given the number of injuries Thiago picks. And I think it's important to talk about Thiago in that performance, because I think it was crucial in Liverpool's improvement in terms of the overall control in the midfield, both going forward and defensively. I think he played his part, and like Bruce mentions, it is very important to keep him fit now for the rest of the season.
Yeah, well, there was a lot of expectation around him because, I think in the start of the season, there was no one under any illusions about how much Liverpool had missed him. But then you almost get a little bit worried about the idea that how can he live up to this expectation? We're saying he's going to solve all the problems of this Liverpool team. And yet he came in last night and he pretty much did. He solved a lot of them. Liverpool looked a lot more well-balanced in midfield, a lot more convincing. He's just got so much quality on the ball, the way he moves teams around in the offensive phase, but also defensively so smart in the positions he takes up to block passing lanes, and he's really clever in the press. That was a side of his game that I think, early in his Liverpool career, he faced a lot of questions around, could he fill in that defensive role that Jurgen Klopp wants him to do, but he's both sides of the ball absolutely phenomenal. He is a world-class footballer, and it does underline just how vital it is to keep him fit, because if Liverpool are going to perform as they have for the rest of the season without him, if he's out again, then that's serious. It's a serious problem. I think the one upside you would say is that last season he did largely avoid injury, and this has only been a small layoff. So, hopefully he's maybe got that out of the way and he can be fit for the rest of this season, because that would be a real boost. yeah, you just hope that can happen. And I would still say there are some small issues that I spoke about in a piece I wrote last night about maybe the right hand side of that midfield isn't quite perfect. But I think Thiago, he papers over a lot of cracks in terms of because he's just that good of a footballer. So hopefully he can continue doing that and stay fit to do so.
Yeah, I mean, fingers crossed for that. Let's hope so that he stays fit. I want to talk a bit about that right hand side in the midfield because again, I think Harvey Elliott struggled a little bit in the defensive side of the game at least, and I think Kumar left a comment here how Trent's defensive play was under scrutiny for that Ajax goal, but I think it wasn't. I felt a bit harsh to criticize Trent in those situations because he was very much isolated on that right hand side, and I think Trent's overall performance as well, defensively in one-on-one situations, especially in the second half, was pretty good overall.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I was having a very similar conversation at half-time at Anfield yesterday, actually, about sort of the idea that Trent would get some blame for that goal, and I felt for him a little bit because if you're in that position, it's basically impossible. You cannot do anything about someone running past you if they time their run well. You can change your body shape slightly side on to give yourself a little bit of help in terms of getting back, but once they get the run on you, there's nothing you can really do about it. The whole thing that Liverpool is supposed to do in that situation is get more pressure on the ball to make the pass harder, but they're just not doing that, and that's really notable that's happening regularly around the right hand side of the pitch. And the difference, obviously, the biggest change that we've seen is that Jordan Henderson isn't starting games on the right hand side of midfield, and instead it's Harvey Elliott. Now, Jordan Henderson spent much of the last 3 years effectively playing right back for Liverpool, filling those gaps that Trent Alexander is asked to leave. He's not just doing it. It's not just a feature of his game. He's asked to leave those gaps, and also, to get more pressure on the ball, so it's not so easy to play in behind him or into that gap between the right centre half and the right back in, and that is just not happening regularly enough. And to be fair, I don't want to criticise Harvey Elliott because I think he's actually played quite well for periods of this season. I think he's a hugely talented player. He's also only 19 years old. He's going to be massive for Liverpool, so I don't want to. It's not really a criticism of him. I just think it's not quite fair what Jurgen Klopp is sort of asking him to do in this moment, because he's essentially saying to him, okay, you come in and do the Henderson role, which is the role of a player who's vastly more experienced than him, and also has completely different characteristics. Harvey Elliott wants to be the creator on that side. He wants to make things happen in the same way that Trent Alexander-Arnold does. So you have to question whether using them both over there, as well as Salah, who we know, he works hard, but he can cheat a little bit on that side and let players past him. Again, it's something that the manager will allow him to do because he's such a threat in terms of goal scoring. So that right-hand side, that combination just doesn't seem to be quite working at the moment. I think that's something that the manager has to solve. It's not a problem with Harvey Elliott. I think, all his upsides and some of his downsides is that he's maybe not quite as defensively secure as Henderson, but that's absolutely fine. I think it's up to the managers to find a way of balancing that out. And I think, it's going to be difficult for him to do that at the moment. But, is that a formation change or something? Because I just think it's far too easy. And we saw it last night, even though Ajax didn't create a string of opportunities, the one they did was down that right-hand side, that weakness we've seen time and time again. And it was far too easy for them to play down that side. And Liverpool really do need to sort that.
Yeah, I think as well, it's easy to forget how Elliott has pretty much basically played as a winger, either on the right or the left-hand side for the vast majority of his career. Maybe he's played a couple of times as a false nine at Blackburn, from what I can remember in the Championship, but he's never been asked to play so defensively. So, of course, he's going to struggle with that side of the game. I think that's inevitable. And I think yesterday you saw that he had 5 defensive ground duels and didn't win any of them. I think that's just unfortunately how it is at the moment. And I think that's something that he will work on and he will improve on in the coming years, but it's not going to come together all at once and at the same time. And I think patience is needed in that.
Yeah, and I think the one upside for Harvey Elliott as well is that, he is so young, and also that the defensive element of the game is the easiest part to coach. You can't coach the quality he's got on the ball, that ability to pick a pass, the quick feet that he's got. That's completely natural, and players are just blessed with that. Some players anyway, some aren't. But yeah, I think the defensive side of the game is the stuff that Jurgen Klopp and Pep Linders and the coaching staff will think that they can they can coach into him over time. But I think, yeah, just for now at the moment, a little bit unfair what they're sort of maybe expecting of him in the defensive side of the game, because I just think he's not quite that player yet, and he isn't really ready to take on that responsibility. And that, yeah, like I say, no reflection on him as a player. He's a huge talent, but I think, yeah, it's just not quite working as they'd hope at the moment.
In terms of the bigger picture, the grand scheme of things, how important do you think this victory will be for Liverpool to sort of galvanise the team and almost as a moral boost? I think, if you were looking for a reaction, if you were looking for something to give that extra boost, a last-minute winner surely can be something positive.
Yeah, we've said about the differences between the Newcastle one as well, that it was backed up by a really good performance. And I think, it's absolutely vital that they got those points on the board in terms of the Champions League hopes as well, because Ajax could be a real threat in that group. So, yeah, you just hope that they can really use that to sort of push them forward, because, it's been such a sort of stuttering start to the season, hasn't it? We haven't really seen that fluency in it. Yeah, maybe a win, and the way it came about, the fact that it was such a deserved win as well, and the scenes at Anfield at full time in terms of the celebrations, they can, the players can really use that to propel them forward, because it's been a difficult start for Liverpool, but the idea that they maybe in the performance last night sort of got their identity back a little bit in terms of, so many features of what we saw in the performance in terms of the work rate and the physicality and forcing Ajax into mistakes and, really trying to sort of physically bully them. It's just, these are characteristics we've seen down the years under Jurgen Klopp and stuff that Liverpool has sort of lost a little bit in some of the questionable results so far this season. So, yeah, you hope it's just sort of allowed them to rediscover themselves a little bit. And then, they've got this little break now, which it could be a blessing or a curse, I suppose, depending on which way you look at it. But I think for Liverpool, a little bit more extra time on the training ground, a few more chats amongst themselves about what this season is going to look like going forward. I actually think that could be really helpful for them. And to go into that break with a little bit of confidence behind them after a big win, yeah, that can't do any harm at all, I suppose.
Yeah, let's hope so. I think that's the perfect note to end on. Thanks, Dave, for joining me. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Make sure to check out the rest of the Blood Red content going out today. There's going to be plenty of reaction still from yesterday's game and all the updates and news that happens throughout the day. So thanks, everyone.